Cobra.
What's going on, everybody? I'm John J. II, and welcome to the best podcast in the capital city, trillpod. Want to welcome you guys to season 5. Obviously, it's been a long time coming with trillpod. Haven't been showing it a ton of attention, but we're back with season 5, and we got big plans for it. You know, amidst all the other podcasts we got going on here on the Gin Podcast Network, there's a lot going on. We have the Gin College Podcast with Cody and I. We actually filmed it earlier. That is now live on our podcast page everywhere where you find your podcast. It's live online, as well as the Fantasy Podcast with Seth and I, soon to be Evan, and we're going to be hosting some different analysts and different fantasy insiders on there, so stay tuned for that one. And obviously the Gin Sports Network podcast, which is the revamp of the previous official Gin Pros podcast. Same thing, different name. So a lot of stuff coming, but I want to kick off season 5 here tonight and make you guys know that we're still here. We're going to be talking about some NFL woes per the title. So there's a lot of things affecting the league right now and in different areas and different facets and aspects. So we'll be focusing on that a little bit. So let's just start it off with Jon Gruden. We talked about this earlier last week, and we talked about how basically he threw his entire career away by, a couple emails, a little misogyny, things like that, homophobia, things of that nature. Very much frowned upon in this day and age, for good reason, right? So to see that happen and to see his downfall really occur is a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of coaches and people in personnel positions that may be engaging in this type of language, even if it's joking and not, to be taken literally in a locker room setting or whatever it may be. You have the paper trail with email, so just stay away from it altogether. You have a role to play, and basically your livelihood and your reputation rides on that. Whenever you're a professional athlete, celebrity, anybody that is a popular human being that is well known by a vast amount of people, you have to be extra careful than the average Joe when, talking on email, talking on social media, things of that nature. And it can be very detrimental to your well-being and your character. Puts a big damper on your character. Not really sure how John Gruden will bounce back from this one, if we'll ever see him in a commentator position ever again. Definitely probably not a coach, because that's essentially a reflection on the NFL for this even happening in the first place. Him coming back to coach the Raiders was kind of a comeback type-esque thing where he, retired from coaching, went into commentating. He's like, you know what? I think I can get back into this. And, he's doing a pretty good job with the Raiders, really turning around their entire franchise and doing good things, and threw it all away with this scandal. And it's been something that's been very prevalent. You've seen it in the news. Haven't probably heard about it in a long time, long time being 4 or 5 days, just because it's somewhat old news at this point. But will people forget about it, and will people forgive John Gruden for what he did? Obviously, his apologies were sincere, but are the people going to buy it? That's the question. Are the people going to buy it? And that's the question at hand. Up next, we have Geno Smith. Geno Smith is an athlete, if you want to call him that. Yes, he did the job last night, and he did what he had to do for the most part. Where he threw it away was towards the end of the game. Obviously, for those of you guys watching that challenge against the Steelers, it was piss poor, to put it lightly. Basically, Geno Smith was having a lot of trouble really counting on his running game, his running backs, to get the job done for him. He found a couple of his receivers. I got to take some shots at DK Metcalf a little bit, just because having that game come to that point, no timeouts, you have to down the ball. You keep the ball in bounds, then you fumble it. It's recovered inbounds with, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 seconds left. You have to get the ball back to the line of scrimmage and down it with, milliseconds basically left. People are already storming the field thinking the game's over. You get the ball down, you get everybody set, you get the ball down, and then you have a chance at a field goal. You send it to overtime. Obviously, you have a chance to go down the field, and all you really need is a field goal. You need a field goal to win. And I had them money line in a parlay where it looks like it would have hit if the Bills are going to win tonight. And we'll get into the Bills later on and talk about this game. A little bit of a struggle here with the Titans, and it's a question. It's up in the air, even if they're going to cover or not. So that's something we'll talk about towards the end. We'll do some Monday Night Football watch party action like you guys are used to here on this channel. Maybe not trillpod, but on the Gin Promotions Facebook page and the Gin Sports Network, we host this quite a bit. Maybe not even in a podcast form, but you're getting it today. Geno Smith, he, against the Rams, he threw a pick, ended it, had to go down the field, do a 2-minute drill, pissed it away. And then last night, obviously got fumbled by JJ Watt's brother with a hell of a tackle, great placement of the hand, and fumbled. They recovered it. So I feel like these plays are basically keeping Geno Smith up at night, just because it's such a big deal to be clutch in those moments. And we all know we can count on Russell Wilson, if he was healthy, to be clutch in those moments. Geno Smith, not so much. You might blame it on the fact that he doesn't have as many reps as Russell Wilson did. He was kind of, called upon. We talked about this earlier today with the Spencer Rattler, Caleb Williams thing. Caleb Williams' number was called, and he grew, and he rose to the occasion and succeeded. And now he's doing a hell of a job. Spencer Rattler didn't even see a snap on Saturday. So, there's ways you can handle the situation when your number's called. You never know when your number's going to be called. When you're sitting on the bench, you're like, you know what, this quarterback's never going to get injured. I'm never going to get my chance. But you have to be at the game. You have to be present. And you have to be dressed just in case that happens. And that happened against the Rams. And he did good for the most part. He showed me some things where I was very, I was impressed with Geno Smith and what he was able to show me on the field, how he was able to facilitate the offense. It's in those clutch moments that you have to be extra successful. at least give yourself a chance to get in the field goal range. Then if the field goal kicker misses it, then that's a different issue. That's not on your shoulders at that point. You did your job, but get your team down the field. Geez, you should be able to count on this guy a little bit more. And I think he just has to practice 2-minute drills in practice with a live defense. Put squad D on there, and have them basically just blow him up. Because if he gets injured, I mean, just go to your next guy. You got to have some other guys in some reserve areas where you can play him as quarterback. Because anything better than Geno Smith right now, and I'm being hard on him. I know I'm being hard on him, but I expect more out of this guy. Moving on. Let's talk about Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell went on the record yesterday saying that Jared Goff needs to step it up. He's doing his job out there, and that's a lie. He's not doing his job out there. He's piss poorly facilitating the offense. He's getting his players in a line and basically going through the motions. That's what it looks like from I almost said a fan. That's how it looks like from a spectator's perspective. I am by no stretch of the word a Lions fan, never will be, regardless of how good they do. I will never be a Lions fan, mark my words. But to see this happen, especially to Dan Campbell and the other athletes that are putting their best foot forward week after week after week and still not reaping any results, no wins. It's got to be disheartening for them, especially after they came into the season, brand new personnel, new management, new coaching staff, and everyone's expecting the world out of these Lions, and you're just not getting it, and not even getting anything really close to it, which is tough to watch. It's tough to see, but I think there's a lot of rebuilding that has to take place. And Lions fans, the thing is, the Lions fans, they're sick of hearing that. They don't want to hear about being in a rebuild year. It's more like a rebuild decade, or multiple decades where they've been rebuilding and figure out different players for different skill positions, getting coaches in there, from teams that were successful, getting athletes in there like Dan Campbell. And I don't want to rag on Dan Campbell. It's not on him. But even though, there are things that do come on him, and he took all the responsibility yesterday in the press conference, but I think there's something that, he can only do so much on the coach's end, where he has to count on his players. He has to count on especially Jared Goff. And I'm happy that he ripped into him a little bit, because he has to get in there. He has to get in his head and be like, you know what? You got to figure it out. Get it done on offense. Get the ball down the field. Don't get stupid fumbles. Try not to get sacked. Be versatile in the pocket. And these things should be automatic. They should be common sense for any quarterback in the NFL. And even if he's got to watch film of other successful quarterbacks that do this week after week with the offense that they have, then, so be it. Anything to become successful, you're going for broke at this point. So things to be considered from the Lions' perspective. They know it. I don't need to tell them that. And they just need to do better, period, end of story. Moving on to the Jaguars. They squeezed away a win yesterday against the Dolphins at home, making them 1-5 with the Dolphins. Still more wins than the Lions. Sorry, just had to throw that last one in there. And that was a good win, and they needed to get that win. That was a must-get win. And for whatever team it is, the Jaguars are rebuilding too. They're in a similar situation as the Lions, to the point where they have new coaches, they have new quarterbacks, they have new personnel, and everyone was looking for them to be very successful this year, and we haven't seen it yet. To get a win is a glimmer of hope. The Lions still haven't had that. You need to get at least over that hump and get that first win before you can really be successful and get more wins. You have to know what it feels like. You have to know what it tastes like, what it smells like, so you can find that again. If you don't have it once, and you can never find it. So things to consider around the league, the NFL WOES, there's a lot of things going on, even behind closed doors, that we don't know about as fans. And we're going to have to roll with the punches and see how things come out based on these different news breaks and whatnot. But it's basically a very fluid league, meaning it changes quite a bit. It changes very often, and we just have to deal with that, especially being fantasy players. We're going to be talking about the fantasy landscape tomorrow on the Fantasy Podcast, hosted by the Gen Sports Network. Seth and I are going to be getting into the specifics as far as what are we dealing with week after week. I just took a tough loss this week, and what is making that happen? Am I not picking players up off waivers? Am I not making the trades that I should be making? And these are questions that we all have. Stainer, on the other hand, he got 2 wins, I think, yesterday in 2 different leagues, and he was ecstatic. And he was kind of amazed because he only had 150 points averaged between both of his teams that got wins. That means the teams he played against didn't net over 150, obviously. So he's ecstatic. He's 1-5, 1-4, 1-5. So he's geeked. He's over the moon. And I don't know if he really knows fantasy that much. He's kind of a fair weather fantasy player. So we're gonna see how it pans out going into the postseason. I know he had high hopes for the playoffs, but you only got 14 weeks, because I think you got to go 3 weeks before the end of the season, before the actual playoffs start, because that's how fantasy works. You got an extra week this year, 14 weeks instead of 13. So don't take it for granted, and take it to the bank. Hopefully you can cash out. So a lot of stuff happening fantasy wise, and things of that nature. Big stuff happening in the NFL. So now we got the Buffalo Bills against the Tennessee Titans. We can look at a box score right now for those of you watching live or watching later on. And you guys listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify will hear this later. But yeah, basically the Bills are up by a nose hair, 6 minutes and 53 left in the fourth. And Tennessee has the ball. Not looking too good. Tennessee setting up to score. Buffalo setting up not to cover that spread of -6. So they got some work to do. My Buffalo Bills Mafia, got my Josh Allen jersey on, and rooting for the boys. Hopefully they get this win and squeeze it out at an away game here in Tennessee. So, I mean, I haven't really seen a lot of fire out of this Buffalo Bills offense. And Josh Allen has been underutilizing players that he utilized huge against the Kansas City Chiefs, one being Dawson Knox. He's somebody that is a big target, or was a big target, but it proves the point that Josh Allen doesn't have a favorite target. It changes and it varies game after game, and we can see that especially in this game where he's targeting Stephon Diggs a lot more, and taking different wideouts and different ball receivers to give them the ball. Cole Beasley, Emmanuel Sanders, he was a big target last week, is also a target this week. Dawson Knox only looking at 3 receptions. Also Devin Singletary receiving a lot of passes. Gabriel Davis receiving 1. Isaiah McKenzie, Zach Moss, Tommy Sweeney with a catch and a touchdown. These are the players. I mean, that just shows the versatility right here on this left side of the screen. It shows the versatility between certain receptions and certain players catching the ball through the air. Like you look at Tennessee, A.J. Brown has 7 receptions, 91 yards. Julio Jones has 3 receptions, 59 yards. I need him to do well for my fantasy. I'm probably still going to lose, but I'd like to see him do well. And, we all know what Julio Jones did with the Atlanta Falcons. That speaks for itself. He's just not being utilized like he was in Atlanta at Tennessee. So, things like that. You can see the difference. You can see the discrepancies here between the Buffalo receiving and the Tennessee receiving, and kind of speaks for itself. Really speaks for itself. Looks like another first down from Derrick Henry, pushes them deep into the red zone, threatening the Buffalo Bills. Let's do some mental math here. They score a touchdown, they'll be up a field goal with the extra point. So that forces them to at least get a field goal to send it to OT. We've seen a lot of OT games this week too. Let's just look at some OT games. Another game that really, really stands out to me, that was an incredible finish, was this Dallas New England game. Passing to CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott passing to CeeDee Lamb right there at the end of the game. All they needed was a field goal. They were slightly, in that zone where they could have kicked the field goal, but they also, probably should have, went for it. They did go for it. They passed the ball. They got it through the air, and they found a gap, because I think the defense of New England was expecting a run, and just didn't cover it correctly, to be versatile, to cover both the run and the pass. in their zone defense. So you're looking at New England. They're 0-4 at home. Bill Belichick can't be too happy about that. Especially at Gillette Stadium, those fans are not used to losing games, especially with Tom Brady. Even when they had Cam Newton, they had more wins at this point than they do now. So a lot of work to be done on the New England side. And I'm feeling for the New England Patriots because I know it had to be hard to be a New England Patriot fan after Tom Brady left. So versatility and sticking with your team, very important things to do as a football fan. So that was one OT game. Then obviously the Seahawks Steelers game went to OT, and I believe there was one more, if I remember correctly. It was earlier in the day. Yeah, Minnesota and Carolina. Minnesota pulled that game off by the skin of their teeth, and they got the win. So 3 overtime games in week 6. Possibly looking for one more if this one kind of goes through, because you put Buffalo down a field goal if the Titans score here. So a lot of game to watch. We're in a commercial break, so I don't know. I want to see the Bills do well. Buffalo Bills, want to see them do well. Josh Allen, huge fan. Obviously, he's a big facilitator. That's one of the intangibles that I look for in a quarterback: being versatile, being competitive, having that competitive edge, getting hype on good plays. That's huge. Having that grit, that Mamba mentality, being able to move, the mobility, and being able to create and make things happen when nothing seems to be there right in front of you. So these are the things that make him a great quarterback and will make the Buffalo Bills a very successful football team going into the postseason. We haven't seen a ton of it lately, but this team is on the up and up, and I'm expecting this team to beat many good teams going down the stretch for the rest of the season. We're not even at the halfway point yet. If we do some mental math, right around week 8, week 9, we'll be at the halfway point with still a ton of games to go. So the season's only heating up. It's only getting started. So we're very excited to watch the rest of the NFL season and see it progress. We also got NFL and NHL going on along with MLB postseason. We'll be covering a lot of that stuff on the Gin Sports Network podcast on Wednesday, so make sure to tune into that. And also stay tuned for our events coming up in late November. We got the Turkey Bowl coming on November 21st, 2021, and then followed by the Gin Fall Classic, our disc golf tournament happening in Flushing at the Kitson Forest. So look forward to that. A lot of information and propaganda will be coming out very soon regarding those events, and also with directions on how you can get involved in these events. So stay tuned and stay woke. A lot of stuff happening, and you don't want to get left in the dark with all this. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to all of our social media for all updates regarding Gin Promotions and the Gin Sports Network and trillpod, and we'll keep you guys posted and in the loop. So until next time, guys, I'm John J. II with trillpod.